Hi, thanks so much for checking out Channel Utilities, a free macOS app. Today we're going to focus on the Interleaver tab, where you can interleave and deinterleave audio, either single files or batch process many files. To get to the Interleaver tab, you can hit Command 1. So if I'm over here, I'm going to hit Command 1 to get to the next tab, Command 2, Command 3 to get to the third tab. So back to Interleaver, that's the key commands. You can learn all about the key commands here. And they're pretty universal, so similar key commands to scan and to run things will happen throughout the app, so as well as setting your input and output. So to toggle between the interleave and the deinterleave, you can hit Command period and Command comma. So they're right next to each other on the keyboard. And that's how you get between the two. To set an input, I'm going to hit Command I. And this is the folder I want to choose. So I can either drag in files, I can select individual files, or I can select the whole folder. And that's what I'm going to do. So I have the option to set an output folder or to not set an output folder, and a lot of these options are available here. I can destructively replace the multi-mono files with interleaved files, or I can keep the originals essentially, and it'll create a new folder called interleaved, which will keep your originals safe, but a lot of times I will delete them if I know that I don't want a bunch of extra files. So for now, we're just going to keep these for this demo. You can set an input folder with Command I and an output folder with Command O. I'm actually not going to set an output folder just to show you what happens. So I'm going to scan. So scan is complete. And what will happen is it'll take a second to load up the waveforms, and it's just a rough calculation of the waveforms. You can use the arrow buttons to go up and down. You can hit spacebar. And then what you can also do is kind of essentially look at your original files by hitting these L or R. And that's going to show different routing. So this is going to come out of my left speaker. This is going to come out of my right speaker. But if you just want to hear it how Finder would play it, which is just mono, either that'll be your phantom center out of both speakers, or if you have a center channel like me with a 5.1 setup, that'll play out of your center speaker. So it gives you some options for that. When you see orange waveforms, you know that it's panned. So I'll go back to stereo. I don't need to really listen to these. I just want to interleave them. So let's run. So you can either click it or you can hit Command R, and it'll show you the progress. Great. So here's an example of what happens if you don't have a output folder selected. It'll automatically create a folder in your original location with the interleaved files. So now these are all stereo files. You can see stereo. Versus these are all .l, .r multi-mono files, so pretty cool. I didn't have generate CSV report, but you can do that, and it'll give you a sort of tell you exactly what you did. Also, there's a history of anything you do in this app. All that stuff is pretty consistent throughout the entire app. So if you ever have an issue, you can copy and paste the log and send it to me. If you do have any issues ever, there's a couple of ways you can either, this will be the easiest thing to do, but you should always check for updates. This app doesn't use any sort of internet connection, so it does nothing to your files in terms of the internet. But if you do want to do a quick checkup, this would be the only thing that really connects to the internet, and that'll just check and see if your app is up to date. And then these are just links to email support or donate. So yeah, that is a very basic example of the interleave sub-tab. And then the other sub-tab here is deinterleave. So continuing on to the deinterleave sub-tab, Let's take a look at a 5.1 mix, and you'll notice here it says layout in the app, stereo left and right. Well, if you drag a single file in, it'll actually detect what order that channel is. So it'll default to 5.1, but if you to SMPTE, but if you know it's film, you can switch it over. But if you're processing many files, you just want to make sure that you have the right order, so that it can label your multi-mono files correctly. And the same goes for Interleave. But like I said, for single files, it'll automatically detect it right away, which is great. So the next thing we want to do is always, we can generate a CSV for this. Right now, I actually don't want to do anything to my originals. It's just going to stay in the same place. And I am going to set an output folder. Let's call it the Interleave test. I'll set the output folder there. I'll hit scan, Command S. And so that quickly scanned it. It shows all the multi-mono files here. And it will generate waveforms, and you can go pan through all these channels to check and make sure it's all correct. And you can play through lots of files that populate here, just like in the Interleave tab. This does take a second to load just because this is a longer, kind of short documentary. But yeah, all this is most of this is resizable, like the waveforms are resizable. You can also hide the options tab, and yeah, and you can play through. I'm not going to play this, but yeah, so it'll generate the waveforms per channel, and so you can hear in your room, essentially, each channel isolated. Instead of like Finder, it would just kind of just play it like a mono file everywhere. So instead of QCing any of your multi-mono channels or your panning, you can just QC it in here. So it's kind of like a smarter version of Finder. But yeah, and let's say I'm happy with that. I can hit Command R to run, which is going to take this composite, this interleaved mix, and essentially just create a folder full of the multi-mono channels. So like I said, that was a bit of a longer file, so that took probably about 15 seconds or so. No problem, but we can go back, and my output folder, which is where I assign the output, will have both the CSV report about what I did and about the file, and it'll also have all of the labeled multi-mono files. So pretty great. And so that is a brief overview of the Interleave tab and the two sub-tabs, Interleave and de-interleave. All the same things that you can do with any of the tabs. You can switch between dark mode, light mode, have it reflect your system, whatever you want to do. And these options are collapsible. You can generate CSV reports for all these tabs. And there's different options. I sort of recommend to people to, that the default options are typically, I find, the most sensible. But yeah, whatever you'd like to do. And as always, if you want to learn more, you can always go to the website and give it a try. You can download it for free and learn a bit more about it. There's also ways that you can support this free software by donating. So definitely no pressure to do that, but anything is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for checking it out.